Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen. I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw. Played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey, and it's playoff time. I fully expected Tom to have a full playoff beard, but he hasn't gone in that direction here.
I actually had it going. I trimmed it today, so it gets too gray.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you have to accept the fact that you're growing older.
No, categorically, no, we do not.
But what's wrong with growing older?
Well, you know how immature I am. How proud of the fact I'm very immature. You know that.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't think you can be proud of being immature.
Really?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think you got to actually be. I think pride requires some level of maturity.
Oh, good. That's excellent. Wow, that's very good.
So,
but I guess it's how you look at immature, though, right? Is immature like a bad thing that you can't like you're
well, I mean, I think sometimes it's good. Some levels of immaturity, if you can still be,
act youthful and
playful, right. That kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'll buy that.
Right. So the bad things about immature is you don't handle things properly because you're.
Yeah, you just don't follow convention. You don't take care of the things you should take care of as you're getting older. Those kinds of things.
So when I was at Northern Michigan University, I went up in the stands at the end of the year and grabbed the radio announcer, brought him down, and put him in the shower. That was immature.
Probably. Yeah. Although, it's interesting. I was watching, I don't know if you didn't, you were busy yesterday, but the U18 World Tournament has been very interesting. A lot of great young players. And yesterday somebody scored a goal, and Craig Button, and I don't know who unfortunately don't know who the broadcaster was, but he was making reference to the fact that the kid had buried the shot. And he goes, I bet when he goes back to the bench, he's going to give whoever it was, so-and-so, the business, because he had missed in a similar thing, jabbing him a little bit. And I'm saying, nothing's changed. That's the way that the hockey was back when you were played.
Oh, yeah.
Give the guy the gears, and it's still now. So, I mean, I think that's just kind of a sports thing,
It's like it means that you're part of the group, right? If we had I remember out in LA, we had rented a home with a pool, backyard, and everything, and invited the team over for a little party one day. I think it started the year, and we invited some neighbors over as well. And of course, all the guys were together and having a few beers, giving each other a hard time and saying stuff to each other. And when the team all left, the neighbors stayed around, and they were sitting by the side of the pool, just mortified. They're like, "Do you guys not like each other?" And we said, "No,
yeah." Well, we've talked about it before. That's why I brought it up. I just wanted to show support for the idea. I mean, it's completely different. You and I have talked before. Like if my wife's had a party here with all of her soccer friends, and they brought their husbands, we wouldn't sit around and insult each other. We would find some other way to communicate. But that, and you have history with these guys. And it's just completely different. And I think I bet it's similar to military.
Yep.
I mean,
if you're part of that group, somebody else can't do it, but the people inside that group
can
do each other.
Yeah. So that makes some sense to me, that it would just be, just shared experience.
Even with guys that you haven't played with, but you had the alumni game 2 weeks ago, and Brandon Dubinsky was on our team, and I had not played with him. Obviously, he's a lot younger. I think he just retired about 3 years ago. And we're in the locker room after, and they're all showered and everything. And he comes by me and he says, "Can I borrow your comb?" Which is pretty good, I thought, right? It's like, we really hadn't even talked to each other that much. All of a sudden, he's giving me a hard time. So that was pretty good.
Yeah. Well, oftentimes, though, I think that's a little bit easier than trying to figure out what to talk to someone about.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if you actually have to give some thought about, okay, where can I connect with this?
Right. Because that is true. Because again, their age group and the amount of money that they've made, a lot of us older guys sit around and say, "Oh, what are you doing for work now?" and everything, because guys have to work in most cases. And I mentioned that to Dubinsky and Aaron Varos, and they both said, "Well, I don't work. I make investments in properties around the country." So it's like a whole different.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about the playoffs. Before we get started, though, I thought today of such a great benefit I have as a sports writer that it just occurred to me today. When you're invested in one team as a fan, like, even though it's a lot of fun when your team's in the playoffs, there's also a lot of stress. Like, you're worried about your team. You're anxious about the matchup. You're watching these games. You're on the edge of your seat. It goes into overtime. Those can go any way. And I've talked to people who just said, it's just, I'm so stressed about this. I really want to get in. I don't have a dog in the hunt. So to me, I just enjoy the playoffs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who wins. I just, I find something in each game that I'm interested in, and kind of move on. So it's a lot more fun for me than I think for a lot of people.
That's a good point too, because you think about even the build up to us, like the Ranger fans now, they think, okay, we're feeling pretty good. We had a great regular season, but now we're playing Pittsburgh and Sidney Crosby. So they're waiting to see what it's going to look like, right? How's this going to? Can we beat these guys or not?
The most complete player according to the polls. I'll tell you what, I really have a lot of respect for hockey players that, and it's always a little bit misleading because the percentages that these guys win by, like, it's not like the majority of players thought Sidney Crosby was the most complete player, but the largest number of them. And, 500 people, 500 players filled out that form.
Oh.
So, I mean, that's a lot of players to do that. But anyway, I appreciate the fact that because I've always thought that Sidney Crosby was a complete player, and also, he's a good guy. And they said he was also the best role model. So, he tries to do the things the right way. I'm sure, he's made some mistakes along the way. I bet he would like to take back the fact that he didn't get in the handshake line in 2008 or whenever that was. But
I remember when Marty St. Louis was with the Rangers and he had lost his mother and had gone away to the funeral and then come back. And they had a video of Sidney Crosby walking in. Marty St. Louis was riding the bike in the hallway outside the locker room. And Sidney Crosby came in and stopped and chatted with him, assuming saying condolences to Marty St. Louis. And it's like, it wasn't just a quick thing. He stood there for a few minutes to talk to him. I thought, that's pretty classy. I mean, most people do that anyways, but these are two, star players in the middle of a playoff series. And I thought it was pretty cool.
Well, and, a lot of stuff that Sidney Crosby does is away from the cameras. Yeah. I just told someone this recently, but I had the enjoyment to ride around with Sidney Crosby when he passed out season tickets. So you can imagine, Sid and me in his truck driving around. Sid just shows up at a house. He's got season tickets. I did a story on it as well. It was, several years ago, obviously, but
cool. I don't know if I knew that. That's pretty cool. That's good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we took some video as we were going along, and we just chatted about life, and he told me some stories, and I've also had some one-on-one interviews too, where like he doesn't, he's a private guy. Like, have you ever seen the picture of Sidney Crosby and his girlfriend? No, he just makes sure, like, he's not a guy that's going to be on the back page. Wow. Of things. He's very careful. Yeah. He told me one fun thing once when I had a long interview with him, and he laughed about it. I think it's pretty hilarious. He said when he goes to the restaurant, often in this age of social media, the waiter or waitress will come over. He will give his order, and then if he goes and then does a search on Twitter, someone nearby his table will have already tweeted what he ordered for dinner before it arrives at his.
Is that table. Right? Huh? Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. He said it's happened more than once to him. That
I never really thought about that much, because I wasn't that level of an athlete, obviously, and it's got to be hard on him too, right? I mean, like to be able to go to a restaurant and just have a quiet.
Sure. So, but he's a classy guy. I mean, he really is. Like, he once during a playoff series, he gave a bunch of us the business over the reporting of about his concussion issue. And what ended up happening is he had been pulled out of a game by one of the spotters, as I recall. Oh. And then he came back and had this discussion, and then everybody kind of wrote about it because of something that his coach had said. His coach had sort of said he didn't really know anything about it or all this kind of stuff. And he basically was kind of angry at us. I mean, anger might be too strong. Disappointed, ticked off, somewhere in the mix there. And there was 6 or 8 or 10 of us. And he basically said, look, I would hope you guys would respect the fact that I know a lot about concussions and that I have a real sense of my body and a real sense of what the symptoms are. I've gone through it. I missed a lot one season. I'm pretty experienced with all this. And I don't think that basically, I mean, he didn't phrase it like this, but he said, I don't think that was reflected in your reporting. You just looked at this as like, I just went back and I blew off the thing and then came back routed. Well, that's not what it was like. Our doctor knows that I know a lot about this. He knows that I know, what I'm feeling and so forth. And, we had an honest and frank discussion about it all. And we talk about it in terms. And the other thing he sort of implied without really saying it, and you know what? This is my business. This is my medical situation. And, he sort of scolded us, lectured us.
Right.
And about 20 minutes later, somebody from the Penguins came up to me and said, Sid wants to talk to you. Oh. And so I went back again, and he just said, I wasn't really mad at you, or I wasn't mad at this guy. It was some of the other reports. Like he said, he said, but everybody was there, and I just sort of lashed out. But he said, I want you to know that I know you understood all that. I looked at the stories, all that kind of stuff. Right. But he's just a classy guy. Right. He just didn't want some of us. I don't know who he talked to because I didn't ask him. But he didn't want some of us to feel like he was mad at us or whatever. And most guys wouldn't even give him that any thought.
Well, and in fairness to you, that's a reflection, and I know you don't want to think this way, but that's a reflection on the reputation you built too. Because people respected you a lot, and you really honored that respect, and the way you conducted yourself and the way you rode. Like, even you could be critical of people, but do it in the right way. So,
you never wanted to be over the top. At least I didn't. You're just trying to do your job, and But anyway, I've always appreciated the professionalism that Sid said, and I like how he plays the game.
I shouldn't be saying that as a Ranger guy. I shouldn't be saying that because the Rangers don't like him.
No, well, he's really hated here. And
I just want to touch on this real quick, Barry Sheldon. So the fire department and the NYPD had a annual game. I think it was at the Garden. No, it was at UBS Arena. I think it was where the Islanders play. That was this weekend. I did not make it. Actually, I was at another charity game. The fire department and police department played in Stamford, Connecticut. They had a police officer who was a longtime coach in Stamford, the high school boys high school team. He's suffering from cancer, so they had a charity fundraiser for him. Fantastic event. Andre Dory had invited me, the former player Andre Dory. So he and I went, and they had very patriotic. They had the bagpipes playing, and they did a fantastic job. So, and he's a really beloved guy around town. So it's good.
Also today, before we get started on the playoffs, is voting day. If you're a voting member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association, your ballots had to be in today. I really shouldn't discuss mine yet because there's sort of rules like you're not supposed to. They're all transparent and they'll all be out who we all voted for, but we don't want anyone figuring out the results prior to the show. But some real difficult choices. Norris Trophy. I mean, Roman Josi versus.
So there's certain ones that the Professional Hockey Writers Association votes on, and yes. Okay.
Yeah, we do not do the Vezina Trophy. That's the general managers. Okay. Well, we do not do the Coach of the Year. That's the broadcasters. Okay. We do the Masterton, and we do that on our own. It's not through the league because that's kind of our personal award. But I thought this year's voting was very difficult.
Huh?
Cal Makar versus Roman Josi.
Yeah.
I mean, really, if you want to vote for either one of those guys, I'm totally fine with that. Like I
didn't watch Tampa a whole lot. Hedman wouldn't be in that category. He didn't have that.
He didn't have the year. I mean, the problem is that Josi had one of the highest scoring seasons for defenseman in NHL history, and Makar had 27 goals. Now Hedman was on my ballot, but he was not in the top two.
Right.
He just didn't have that kind of magical season that both those guys had. But he's in the mix. Adam Fox is in the mix, in my opinion. But neither of those guys just had that. It was one of those years when, we were talking about Makar and Roman Josi the entire season.
Yeah. And in fairness, Fox did not have the year. He didn't have a bad year, but he didn't have the year that he had last year either. So
no, that's right. But and then the other one was MVP. Oh my gosh! Like the minute you make a case for Shesterkin, then someone's going to make a case for Austin Matthews. First American-born player, and someone else is going to make a case about Johnny Gaudreau. Yeah. Johnny Gaudreau led the league in even strength points. And I don't know that you can help a team more than Johnny Gaudreau helped the Calgary Flames.
Yeah. Nate McKinnon in that category?
Is that McKinnon? Yeah, he's up there too. Connor McDavid had another incredible year. The Oilers in the playoffs.
McDavid, again, it was James Patrick was telling us that he was talking to Tippett when he was coaching Edmonton, talking about that he creates more scoring opportunities in one game in a lot of cases, in one game than the other team does.
That's right.
Good. I wonder if he's so good that people just don't pay attention anymore, right? Because they just assume he's just going to be doing that every game.
Yeah, no. So, I found that voting difficult. And then I had my normal frustration with things like the Lady Byng Award. When I was president, there's nothing about penalty minutes in the description of that award. There's nothing about penalty minutes in it. It's for gentlemanly, conduct. You're a good guy.
Right.
But too many of my colleagues get the statistics out and look for guys who have 12 or fewer penalty minutes and then vote for them. I just really dislike that. I don't mind you using that penalty minutes, once you establish who you like on that. But, like every year, I put Nick Lidstrom on my ballot.
Yeah.
I didn't care how many penalty minutes he had. Like, is there anybody who played a more gentlemanly game than Nick Lidstrom?
Yeah, that is true, yeah.
Yeah, like I didn't need statistics to know that he should be on the ballot.
Who's in the running for this year?
Pardon me. To me, it was guys like Joe Pavelski.
Right. Patrice Bergeron in there or no?
Patrice Bergeron it could be consideration as well. Right. Although I do think because Bergeron is up for the Selke, I do always sense that writers always want to sort of share the wealth a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
that award is it's not an award that somebody, especially now because the game has changed. There's so many guys that could win the award. The game, like the violence part of the game, has gone. Like Adam Fox could be. He plays like a gentleman.
For sure. Yeah, and that's what I would like to see of. And the same thing with the Masterton, where I always would remind our writers that it's not comeback player of the year. You don't have to have an injury or an illness to have win the Masterton. And I remember Chris Letang said, it's the one award you don't want to win because to him he felt like he had to have an illness or a injury to get it, and that's the way it shouldn't be. Like that's another award that Zdeno Chara has never won that award. Oh. How can you play into your 40s and not win that award?
Yeah, kidding.
It's for perseverance.
Perseverance of the game.
Yeah.
Kreider here is the candidate for the Rangers, and he does a lot of stuff in the community. Very dedicated to the game. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Sometimes I'm not sure. You can make a case perseverance for Kreider because he just never was that player, and he finally broke through, and he is that player. But like community service, there's no mention of community service in that award.
Yeah, you're right. It's just all perseverance to the game of hockey.
It is, dedication and perseverance. Okay. Those are the words. Those are the key words. So
and then we speak about Jack Eichel. Speaking of that, I don't want to give him a hard time anymore. But have you heard any noise out of Vegas at all?
No, not yet. They haven't done anything. The axe has already fallen in Detroit. That's been the only.
That's right.
Jeff Blashill is out after 7 seasons.
What's your prediction for?
Detroit? It's hard read. Steve's always a hard read. I've heard rumblings from somebody that knows Steve that he was so unhappy with the performance of the players that perhaps he'll go with someone with a harder edge. And that's usually sort of how coaching decisions are made. If you have a kind and considerate coach and that doesn't work out, you bring a harder coach in. When you have a harder coach and that doesn't work out, you bring a communicator in or a players coach, something of that nature. So, that would make some sense. But if you look at Steve Yzerman has had 2 hires during his 10 years as general manager, and both of them were at the time younger coaches who were just earning their stripes. There was Guy Boucher, who Yzerman subsequently fired, and then of course John Cooper. Right. So if you went on that regard, then maybe you'll be looking at somebody who's been strong in the NHL, and so forth. Right. So
I agree. All right, playoff time. Start tonight.
Let's do that. Let's go by the series, and just give our predictions briefly and talk just in general terms. I don't think people need a blow by blow on what we think, but let's start in the East and let's see. We've got Tampa and Toronto. That's going to be a great series.
I don't think it's going to be a great series. I think Tampa's going to win handily. I think they could win in 4, maybe 5 games.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I don't like the goaltending in Toronto. I don't like the defense in Toronto.
Don't you think the defense has been a lot better? And just as you predicted, Giordano has made a difference there.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm taking Tampa too, but I'm not going to dismiss. I mean, Toronto's had an excellent season and played better, and I think this could be competitive.
Right. I just see Tampa being really physical against Austin Matthews in particular. He and Matt and Connor.
Yeah, they don't really have the team that they've had before to do that. Last year they had those guys that were really difficult to play against. Yeah. That third line was tough, and that doesn't exist. And the other thing I would point out, although they did pull it together in the last 2 weeks, they just didn't play well in the last third of the season. But I'm also taking Tampa as well, 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion. So then we've got Florida, of course, and Washington.
Ooh. And Ovechkin is back. Reportedly, he's playing game 1. I just, I guess my thing is with Florida. Again, I know Capitals haven't won in a couple of years, but they haven't. That bulk of those guys had won a Stanley Cup, so they know what it takes. I just, Florida. I'm going to take Florida, but I think this is going to be a good series. It's going to be a 7-game series, and I think there's going to be a few blowouts in each side because I'm not crazy about Florida's goaltending, at least the consistency of their goaltending. But Florida can score a ton of goals, so I'm going to take Florida.
Yeah. To me, the key in this series will be if Ekblad comes back, because I think their one Achilles is their defensive team. Right. But if Ekblad's ready to go, I think that'll help them. I mean, he'll play almost half the game, so.
Yep.
But I'm taking Florida in this too. I mean, they just scored too many goals. Now it's a different season; they won't get as many goals, but they're still will get some goals. So I'm taking that. So, and then Rangers and Pittsburgh.
Well, I got to take the Rangers, and I really think not just because we played for, but I just think Shesterkin is the key to it too. I mean, listen, they've got a lot of other good players. They've added a lot of depth. I think they've got good playoff player type players that will grind it out. But Shesterkin is just, Pittsburgh's going to generate some offense with Crosby and Malkin both there. They'll generate some offense, and then I just think he's so good he can stop them. So I will take the Rangers in 5 games.
Yeah, and the goaltending advantage is distinct because Jari's not even playing yet. So
for 2 games, right? He's out for it,
Yeah, he's still out. And Casey DeSmith was better in the last couple of weeks, but he's had a real trying, challenging season. So that may not be in the best interest of the Penguins. And then the other one is, I think, one of the more intriguing series, Boston and Carolina. I want to believe in Carolina, but, Boston is Boston. They're a good team. They're very consistent. They know
Anderson's still out for Carolina, correct? Goaltender?
So far, yeah. So,
yeah. That's going to be a good series, right? I just when I've seen Carolina play, their forechecking, if they're playing their game, their forecheck is unbelievable. So it's going to be up to, if Boston can get the puck out of their own end quickly, then that really changes the game because I really do believe the forecheck is the strength for Carolina. I'm going to go with Carolina, but again, you're right. It's going to be a great series. It could go 7 games as well. Yeah,
and Carolina's defense, even though the culture of Boston is a strong defensive game, I think Carolina's defense is so strong. Jacob Slavin is just he shouldn't be underrated at this point because we've always talked about he's underrated, but I still don't think he gets enough attention for how strong he really is. So
D'Angelo's provided a lot of offense for them too. So They're a good team.
Yeah. Okay, let's run out to the West. Some real interesting series there. One that I really like is for just a very unusual reason is Los Angeles and Edmonton. And I'm intrigued by that series because we have the 40-year-old Mike Smith versus the 36-year-old Jonathan Quick in goal.
That's right. Yeah. That's
so
right.
It's the old men in net. Jonathan Quick wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the starting position, yet he's, said, no, I'm not ready to quit yet. So I'm going to do this, and maybe I can be like I was when we won here. And then Smith, he saved their bacon. I mean, they had goalie question marks. He was injured, and then as soon as he came back and started playing regularly, they've been a really good team. No one's paid much attention, but they were really good in the last 20 games or so.
Yeah, I know, and everybody, including me, was very I was very critical of Ken Holland. I couldn't understand the Evander Kane signing. That turns out well too. He's played a big role for them. Scored a goal. So, yeah.
Well, when he plays hockey, we knew he was going to be an impact player. He's exactly what coaches and GMs are looking for. He's a guy that can, and he's perfect for the playoffs. He's got some size. He plays with a little bit of edge.
Right.
So
I'm going to go with Edmonton, but I just think the youth of LA, they're just, I think they, I guess it depends how they handle it, but they've got isn't Dustin Brown announcing his retirement too? He's done.
He did. Yeah. He already announced it. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Edmonton. Yeah. I like Edmonton as well. And then we've got, Colorado and Nashville, which is interesting because that pits the two Norris finalists that I talked about, Roman Josi and Cal McCarr.
And then Duchesne back where it started for him.
Yeah, for sure. All the little things that, I've talked about this before on the show, all the things that I've learned about hockey over the last 30 years now don't seem to be true. Like the little things, face-offs, being hard to play against, it doesn't seem to matter as much anymore.
Having a good power play, having a good penalty kill.
Yeah.
Teams win without that,
Yeah, Colorado is the worst face-off team in the league. They are not as hard to play against as Calgary, yet I watched them against Calgary, and they were the better team. Even Sutter said after the game, I don't know how anybody's going to beat this team. He said that, I think, to send a message to his team. But they got a lot going, and they've got a lot of talented players. So difference makers.
Yeah, Colorado in 5 games. 5 games.
Yeah, Nashville, I'm just not a believer that they're a real legitimate, contender.
I agree.
Okay, then we'll go to
Minnesota, St. Louis.
Yeah, Minnesota, St. Louis. I think that's the closest series.
Yeah, that'll be a fun series to watch. 2 big, hard teams. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, and a lot of people are shocked when I point this out, but the number 4 and the number 5 offensive teams in the league. Both these teams are high-scoring teams. You don't think about it. But, with Minnesota and Kirill Kaprizov and, so there's, I think this is a team that both teams have the ability to win. The goaltending matchup, I think, is going to be interesting.
Right. So who is playing, Fleury or is Cam Talbot?
I think it'll be Fleury, but Talbot played very well down the stretch. So I think there's less pressure to play Fleury simply because the owner was so involved in making that decision. So,
you're going to go out and get Marc-Andre Fleury. If you don't play him, he's shown that he's not going to, quit on the team. Not, he's not going to be ready if something happens. If they play Cam Talbot and he starts and doesn't do well, I don't think it's a concern that Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be pouting because he didn't start. Right? No. He's shown in the past that he won't.
No, he's a classy guy. Yeah. So who are you taking in that series?
Wow. I like the way Minnesota plays. I just think they're the big, hard, fast team to play against. I do like their goaltending. So I'm going to go Minnesota. But again, that's a 7-game series.
Yeah, I'm Minnesota too. They have convinced me. I think Bill Guerin has done a terrific job there. I'm not dismissing St. Louis. They're also, and they're a team that no one's paying any attention to them.
Yeah, I agree.
And, it's like Minnesota, as hard as this is to believe, has actually gotten more attention than St. Louis has. So,
well, making that big move like Fleury's, picking him up, that's a big move. That's an attention grabber, right? It's like, okay, they're really going for it here. And like we talked so many times, they have to go for it now because their cap situation going forward is not what they want. So.
Yeah, then finally we got Calgary and Dallas, a rematch of the bubble series that they had when during COVID, and I just don't think that Dallas has the team.
I know. We thought that 2 years ago too, right when they went to the finals. Yeah, I just think Calgary's too good. Calgary's got it all. I think they
do. I mean, they're great on faceoffs. They're great on penalty killing. They're hard to play against. They're heavy. They've got the dynamic top line with Lindholm and Gaudreau and Tkachuk. And it's now or never because, they don't have Gaudreau signed.
Yeah.
They're worried about Tkachuk leaving in a couple of years. So there's now it's now or never. And they got Sutter. I mean, that's a guy that's won a Stanley Cup. He knows what he's doing.
Gets most out of his players, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing somebody pointed out, this is being smart, but one thing somebody pointed out how consistent Jack Eichel is, that he has never made the playoffs in the National Hockey League career.
He really hasn't. No.
Yeah. So that's a consistent player right there.
Yeah. Well, after he did okay for a while, but really down the stretch, if you look at his numbers, they weren't very good.
When they needed him too, that was a surprising thing.
Yeah.
I think they know what's going on there with him. I mean, it just seems like, and we talked about it on our Thursday show as well. And Jace Patrick, who is coaching, obviously in juniors, but still follows the game a lot. Just like it's like when you're looking at it, because this kid's a good hockey player. But a lot of people are really, they look to that those comments he made after he went back to Buffalo to play a game. And again, that's just one comment, but like that's kind of the way they see him as a player, right? That kind of immature and.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure Jack Eichel's the reason that they didn't make the playoffs, but they had so much going on there. I don't think it was Logan Thompson, their goalie. I thought he played pretty well.
And then they had, all the stuff with Robin Leonard too, right at the end there, where he's telling everybody else except the coach that he's not playing, he's getting surgery, and that's
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen some comments on social media regarding. That if DeBoer loses his job, like they wouldn't want to in Detroit, they wouldn't want it to get him because he's such a bad coach. And I'm thinking, what? Like, Pete DeBoer has been around, and he's lost his job like every other coach around the league. But
But right? You got to wonder what's in that locker room, right? Again, we've talked about this before, where they go from being the underdog team of the year every year for 4 years, it seems like, and then all of a sudden now they change things around. The whole Marc-Andre Fleury thing, bringing in all the star players, Jack Eichel, changing coaches. People are critical of McCrimmon, the way he handled things as general manager. It's just it's like the team's falling apart.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you've kind of hit on all of their issues, and usually, it's kind of like that old movie with Billy Crystal. It's never one thing. It's always a combination of factors, and I think that's what's going on there. I think there was some management blame there. I think there's ownership blame.
Apparently he's very involved.
So ownership blame, management blame. I don't think that DeBoer handled the Leonard situation particularly good, but I also think Leonard. I know he's just trying to be an advocate for mental health, but I think that can be in itself if you're too vocal. It causes some disruption within the dressing room.
Right. They did make comments that the league doesn't care about the players and their health, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Well, but that's almost that is the National Hockey League. That's pro sports. They're not there to. I mean, they want you to be healthy. They're not trying to hurt you. They need you to be healthy so you can play. But you're playing a violent game where people get hurt. Of course, that's.
Well, I mean, we're hearing that now in baseball with the actual baseballs because the pitchers say you can't grip them properly, and so now they're more dangerous. It's a constant theme in sports as the league doesn't care.
Yeah.
So.
And they don't. I don't think it's not that they don't want people getting hurt, but it's not their job to worry about their long-term health going forward.
I don't think there's any. You can't even make a case that leagues are concerned about the long term. Yeah. I mean, other than how should I phrase that? But I think maybe individually they might have some concern about players, but in terms of their business,
Yeah.
Um,
And I don't think there should be an expectation from the athletes to think that the owners do care about their long-term health. That's you're signing a contract to play a very violent game, very dangerous game where people get hurt, and they need you to be healthy. They'll provide the medical care for you while you're playing. But once the game's over with, then
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's not the only profession where you put yourself at risk. You know, there are some professions that people do that are dangerous, to say the least. So,
I agree. So the draft lottery odds are out. Do you understand how this all works? So it's based on, is it the same every year? It's just the ranking of it. The odds don't change, right?
Well, they're changing this year because we're only going down to 2 spots that you can move. Okay. It was 3, so you could go from 1st to 4th. Now you can only go 1st to 3rd. Right. Isn't that right? Or is it? Can you only go?
I think it's 1st to 3rd. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Vegas Golden Knights 0.5%. Vancouver 0.5%. Winnipeg Jets 1.5%. Islanders 2%. Columbus 2.5%. San Jose 3%. Anaheim 3.5%. Buffalo 5%. Detroit 6%. Ottawa 6.5%. Chicago 7.5%. New Jersey 8.5%. Philadelphia 9.5%. Seattle Kraken 11.5%, and the Arizona Coyotes 13.5%. Montreal Canadiens 18.5% chance
of winning one of the 2 spots or the first spot.
Okay, draft lots idea. I think it's to win. It's to win the top spot.
To win the top spot. Yeah. See, I would argue that's too low. Like I think the team with the worst record should be no worse than, into the 30-some%.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I'm with you, right? Because, look at Arizona, for example. I think, and we've talked about this before, they've really damaged that hockey market there for the fans. To me, for long term, right? They've traded away all the good players going into that small arena. And now through all that stuff, they end up with a 13.5% chance of getting the first pick. So it's not like you do all that with the idea, as much as I don't like it, you've done it with the idea that you're really going to have that shot at that top guy. But I guess, listen, if you get the second or third guy, you can still argue that that's still a pretty good hockey player too. But yeah.
Well, and we're starting to hear this year that, and I remember Bob McKenzie at his midseason pointed out that, there could be some challenge even for that number 1 spot. Everyone had, who is it? Is Wright? What's the kid's name?
I can't remember. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just reading here. Among the changes taken effect this season, there will be a limit on the total number of selections a team participating in the draft lottery can move up in the event it wins the lottery. Thus, only the top 11 seeds will be eligible to receive the first overall selection in the 2022 NHL draft.
Right. Yeah.
So only the top 11 seeds can move up that far. But it's a matter of how far can you drop down, right? I got you.
Yeah, so you can move 2 down, I think, instead of 3.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if like somebody whoever like 11, can't drop because they're only going to move up. But
gotcha.
So
interesting. Anyway. That's fun to watch that. Yeah, it's good.
That'll be good. Well, anyway, we appreciate everyone from tuning in. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll have games under our belt. We'll have something to discuss. Tom will have his playoff beard started. Or
yes,
maybe
I'm going to get it going. I trimmed it up today, but I'll let it go from now on.
So that sounds good. Anyway, if you want to read me, I'm at DetroitHockeyNow.com and HockeyBuzz.com.
And if you want to listen to the radio version of this show, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports. We'll see everybody on Wednesday.